Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the table. I'm sitting actually at my table today because I realized like the show is at the table. We should be at the table. So wherever you are, I'm grateful you're here. Lift your glass, pour a cuppa, and join us at the table. So when we think about who we want at our table, the idea of the table to me comes from a long-rooted now habit that I grew up with. When I was a little girl, my sister and I were involved in the dinner parties that my parents hosted. Now, these are not fancy. You don't have to serve goose flambe or whatever. I don't even know what you flambe when you have that, but you don't have to worry about what's at the table. What you want to think about is that people want to feel welcome and wanted. We all want to belong. The table is this literal and metaphorical magical spot for transformation. I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that's real because we're better people when we're at the table. Today's guest, Rhonda Scher, is one of those people who I always want at my table. There will always be a chair for her, and that's not hyperbole either. We met a couple years ago online, and we've taken it the online to the offline. And we've met her fine husband, who she adores. It's so great when connections are real and purposeful. So Rhonda, thank you so much for making time to be at the table today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Anytime your table is available, I want to see. You're the best.
And you got it. You were on the stage at that table in Thousand Oaks with that show a couple months back too. So
and it was phenomenal. Oh my gosh. And I was not expecting to be at the table.
Well, your generosity is one of the first things that really hit me, Rhonda. Where does that generousness come from you? Where do you think that's based in?
You know, I really think that comes from my dad. My dad was one of those people that would give you the shirt off his back. And he was a carpenter in Boston. And, you know, he could fix anything. He said that I could break anything, but he could fix anything. and so he would help out all of his friends, and he would never take a dime. You know, he was just one of those people. In fact, I'm really dating myself here, okay? But, you know, you'd go to a restaurant and, you know, this is way back, right? We're talking 70s, right? You know, and doggy bags were a new kind of a thing, right? Nobody ever thought about taking your leftovers home. And to my dad, you know, that was like, no, you don't do that. You know, that like was, so he really had this spirit of generosity. And, you know, that you always said, I've heard you marry your father. Well, I did, because my fine husband is just as generous, just as giving. You know, he's like the exemplary dad, the exemplary husband. So I think that's really where I got it. And that has carried over in my life. One of the things that I say to my clients, Ginger, and it's really interesting in connecting and networking, is I said, would you ever walk into a bank and ask to make a withdrawal if you hadn't made a deposit?
Boom.
So go make the deposit and then ask for the withdrawal, right? So I just think that it's how you're brought up. And that was the model that I had with my dad, who unfortunately we lost way too early at the age of 64, but those lessons are still within me.
Outstanding. So the making the deposit, what a great way to think about so many facets of life. It's well, you get out what you put in. Well, thinking of the literal deposit, putting something into a receptacle, whether it's ethereal or actual, that's a fantastic way to think about it. And as you know, I don't use the networking word, and you already used the connecting word and networking. When we think about those two, we think about like the structure of a network, which is really great, just like the structure of LinkedIn or whatever it might be. We want to think about how are we then putting some muscle on that structure. It's a skeleton, and then we need to fill it out. You've chosen LinkedIn for your magic. I wish I had a wand. I'm going to use a pink here. I know pink is one of your favorite colors. Like, bing! Rhonda, brilliant. Yes, could do anything, has done so many different things. Why did you choose LinkedIn those years ago, and why do you stay with LinkedIn? So let's start with that. What is it about LinkedIn that really resonates with you so you chose it to be your work?
So networking has always been something I've loved because it really is connecting with people. And the first book I wrote was called The 2 Minute Networker.
Mm,
And that was back in 2005.
okay.
Well, LinkedIn showed up not too long after that, and I was one of the very early adopters.
Mm,
What happened was my previous life, my background was I was a paralegal.
right.
So I knew how to use LexisNexis.
Mm,
And if you've ever used LinkedIn, it's got kind of the same kind of logic. But it's an interesting thing when you ask the question, how did I choose it? Well, Facebook was coming around pretty much around the same time. And one of the things that I noticed was there really wasn't a female face to LinkedIn. There
ooh.
was to Facebook, it was Mari Smith. And to this day, Mari Smith is still one of the biggest female influencers on Facebook. So I
Huh.
thought, well, there's a space at the table. LinkedIn, let's jump in. And that's where I said, well, what's the first way to get credibility? And Ginger, you know this. You've written connectivity, you've written how many books? Oh my gosh. So I wrote a book called The ABCs of LinkedIn, Get LinkedIn or Get Left
Mm.
Out. In
Oh, wait a minute.
2000,
Wait a minute. Wait. Say that again. That is such a fabulous title.
The ABCs of LinkedIn, Get LinkedIn or Get Left Out. And I wrote it in 2009.
Love that.
I self published. And get this, I was nervy enough because there wasn't really many books on LinkedIn in those days that I actually put a $99 price tag on it. And everywhere I went and every place I spoke, I would bring them. I, have them all printed. I still have one left because it's very much out of date, obviously. But I will send you the digital copy, my friend. And I would sell out of them because it was literally everything from A to Z. It was put in logically, it was professionally done, it was, and I realized that I like to be the bearer of good information.
Mm,
And there wasn't a woman that was sharing LinkedIn in a way that wasn't salesy or sleazy, that
mm.
it was way more relationship driven because I'm relationship driven. I mean, look at me. I married the same guy twice. I better be relationship driven, right?
Not salesy or sleazy. I love that like Betty White says, the brass ovaries came in and said, damn it, this is worth something. I'm gonna put a $99 price tag. Good for you. My first book was actually $49, and the community that I was serving at that time was appalled. Like, oh, why is your book worth this? I'm like, oh, wrong. Next. You've got it. Like, I can imagine, like, what were some of those early rooms like, Rhonda, when you were speaking and talking, and then the book is there? What was that like?
Um, because there was so little available back then, and we're talking about, 2009, people just snapped it up, and I did some cool packaging. And I also took my previous book, which was The 2 Minute Networker, and I had multiple workbooks that went with it because really in those days we weren't digital.
Mm,
Now everything is just send it over digital, or maybe we use a thumb drive. But in those days, the information was there, so I just made it available for people to purchase.
mm.
And that was their way of being able to, quote unquote, take me home, right? So they
Right.
could get the information. And I really made it simple. I don't like complicated. Really, I have a sign in my kitchen. It says the kitchen came with the house. I don't cook. It's like
I, I want my house to come with a kitchen.
you and my husband, really we'd starve because he's the cook. However,
We
if
love you,
I
Bob.
but if there was a recipe, I could easily follow it and you wouldn't die of food poisoning. You wouldn't say it was a gourmet meal, and he's shaking his head because he knows, right? I'm not a foodie. However, what I did was I really made it simple so that it's step by step. How do you do this? How do you connect with somebody?
Mm,
Please make it personal. Where did you met them at a networking event or some kind of
right.
an association meeting? It would be, hey Ginger, it was a blast meeting you at XYZ meeting. I see that you also did XYZ. Let's connect, right? As opposed to just hitting the connect button.
Ooh,
So I took
ooh.
the online and the offline and I married them.
Mm,
Very easy to do, right? What's
yes.
the
Well,
likelihood the person's going to accept?
right,
95%.
right. It's easy because, well, it's easy when we're thinking about this holistically, because connection isn't lopsided, it isn't one dimensional. This is with
Right.
purpose. And I like, you're so great at saying, everybody's welcome at my table. Let's have a conversation. And you mean it. And you're still focused on who are you going to serve the best? Who is going to get the most from what you offer? And we start to qualify. And for the record, everybody who's watching, there's a big difference between choosing and judging. Like Rhonda, you're a great example of choice. Like if they're not your people, you're not going to judge them. You're simply going to move on. And with LinkedIn, how many people are on that platform?
I think the last number was somewhere about 830 million or something.
Right. And so there's always going to be more great people. Like my friend Mike Sansoni, who wrote the inscription in my book, there's always room for one more good one. So Rhonda Scherer is here at the table today. She's not just a good one, she's a great one. And she is sharing some of the inception of LinkedIn and how she got into it, why she got into it. And so, Rhonda, let's go next. Like, if you were going to be in my next book, which would be delightful, like, how would you define connecting? And how do you define network? Those have been thrown around a little bit today. So tell me how they're different to you or how you would define both of them.
So I define connecting by creating rapport with somebody. It's finding those areas of commonality. I'll give you a great example.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I like to look at who likes my post. I like to look at who looks at my profile. And I noticed that there was a new name that popped up. It was a gentleman that had liked my post for the first time, never saw the name before, looked at my profile and sent me a connection request.
Hmm.
So he actually had, are you ready for this? A phone number right there. And I called him, took out my phone and I said, and by the way, you can see how, recent it was that they looked at your profile. So I knew that he had the little green dot and he had looked at my profile within the last 30 minutes. And I just called him up and I said, Richard, this is Rhonda Scherer from LinkedIn. And he's like, oh, hi, like we're old friends.
Right?
And I talk about connecting. I said, I'm curious, what caused you to want to connect with me and interact with me? And he goes, oh, well, I've been seeing your stuff, but you did a post actually about surfing. And I'm a huge surfer. And I also
Are you kidding me? I didn't know. I didn't.
No, I'm not a surfer. He is.
Oh, I'm like, Rhonda, I didn't know you like to surf. Okay,
I
sorry.
surf the internet. I don't surf the ocean. But my post was about surfing and I made the analogy to, LinkedIn. But
Okay.
it touched a note with him because it was a video of a surfer. And this guy, was a surfer. And so we started a conversation and where we ended up connecting was on multiple levels. I said, oh, I noticed that you worked with XYZ. It was a particular financial service company. And he said, yeah. I said, well, my financial guy is actually with that company. He said, what's his name? It turns out they're working together currently.
Perfect. It's such a small world and it's so connected. Oh,
Boom, connect.
so
And
good.
then this was the part that was super cool. So I said, I'm curious, why did you reach out? What are you looking for? How can I be of service? And he said, well, I really want to pay it forward. Now, those are words that are music to my ears because I love paying it forward. And he said, I'm working to grow NAFA. Well, NAFA is the National Association of Insurance and Financial Executives. And I had actually been a keynote speaker live in person, if you can remember those days. I know you do them now, but I still haven't. Literally, probably, I don't know, 15 or more years ago. And I was just approached from somebody that heard me speak on a Zoom to be considered, and I was selected as the keynote speaker for the NAFA National Convention in February. So now I'm going to be the keynote. And he said, oh my gosh, this is like, he had no idea that I even knew what NAFA was, much less. So we established a connection based on, a couple of different things. And from there, we said, great, let's set up another call and let's see how I can be of service to you.
Right.
So that to me is connectivity. It's finding those areas where you share common interests, asking questions, not just talking. Networking is different. Networking is kind of like speed dating. Hey, how are you? And then, instead of saying, what do you do? Right? Because I just hate that question, right? I learned this from Landmark Forum. What lights you up? What's really cool and great in your world? And that's how you can network in a way that's more authentic. Because
Yes.
everybody says, what do you do? And then they just go, oh, I sell insurance. Yawn. Like you want
Right.
to get somebody excited. So
Yes.
you ask them a question. What lights
Yep.
you up? What's new and great and amazing in your world? But networking is something you can do multiple times a day because on Zoom, there's always a group that you can pop into and network at and give your elevator pitch. But connecting, that takes a little more time, a little more research, and a lot more thought.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you for sharing all that. It's the network is like the mechanical pieces to get in motion. Where am I going to show up? Why am I going to show up? Who's going to be there? Who can I serve? It needs to be that connector's mindset that you embody so well. You're positive, you're objective, you're willing, and you're making the deposit, as you so aptly said at the first part of our show. So this is good. You're helping me rethink a little bit, Rhonda, which you usually do. And for the record, for full disclosure, not that I have to, it's my own damn show. Rhonda and I worked together. We met through the networking group. So little whoop whoop to our friend Michael Goldberg, and we immediately hit it off. And we've taken it offline. We've been in person together. We've met her fine husband, and it's interesting how slippery it can be to get back into a rut when what we really want to do is groove. Networking can feel like a rut. I had somebody who is Thomson Reuters called and said, yeah, I really want to help people think differently about this because it's blah, blah, blah. Some of the things you just said, like, don't ask people what they do. Don't ask them how their day is. Like, unless you really know somebody, unless you truly give a damn already because you know them and they know you have done the work like you're talking about, Rhonda, you've put some investment into it. There's a deposit that's been put down, and it doesn't matter. Going with the questions like you suggest are so much better to open up and help people relax. They drop their shoulders like, oh, she's really interested. She's not just doing the thing to do the thing. We get out of that rut of thinking that this is what we are supposed to do, which could not be further from the truth. And especially right now, we're starving to know who people are and to feel valued, welcome, wanted, all those kinds of things. So you're helping me rethink about networking, because I generally don't use that word, and I don't think it's a bad word. I just think we're not using it right. So when we think about LinkedIn, Rhonda L. Scherer, not to be mistaken with the other Rhonda Scherer. First of all, Larry, if you would put Rhonda's site in the chat, we'll have it in the show notes, also the sheremethod.com, the SHER method. And you've got some great goodies coming up. When we engaged, it was almost 2 years ago, Rhonda. Can you believe that?
I think it was actually before that. It was before the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, because I was in and we had our kickoff call because I decided like, oh, she's my next LinkedIn coach. And I hired Rhonda for what do you call it? Done for you. There it is. The done for you package. I'm like, yes, I love this. This is not where my time is best spent. So when you're talking about who you serve, different entrepreneurs and people who are really in an entrepreneurial mindset, you don't have to be your own company, right? You can be with large companies, you can be with associations, it doesn't matter. You can help so many people. But when you're thinking about who you particularly love to help, who particularly lights you up, who is that? Let me rephrase that. What is the mindset of the person who is looking for what you have, even if they don't understand it all, Rhonda? And who do you find that you can best serve?
So what I found, Ginger, and this is really interesting, is that people seek me out for pretty much one of two reasons. One is the person who already has a steady flow of business. So I'll give you an example. I had given a talk to a very prestigious real estate organization before the pandemic, and one of the women in that group, who is literally, I think she's like in the top 1% of all of the real estate agents in the country, reached out to me. She remembered me from my talk and said, you know what, I just have a quick question. Can you help me with this? And, instantly I gave her the answer and she said, what do I owe you? I said, oh, you don't owe me anything. Like your money doesn't work here. And, and so she said, I'm curious. I am not showing up on LinkedIn the way that, I really am. How can you help me? So one of the people that I love to work with are people that already have the credibility, that already have the visibility, but they're showing up on LinkedIn in what I like to call the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program. They're hiding out, they're not standing out. And they don't need LinkedIn to generate business. They already have a solid pipeline, which at some point, if it turned off, they could turn it on. But those are a lot of the people that I love working with because they really need the help to be able to show up. Because a lot of particularly real estate people, whether you're commercial, residential, you get a little blurb on a big company website that doesn't tell people who you are and what you've done. So there's that segment. The other part of the people that I love working with are the service providers, the attorneys, the real estate professionals, the coaches, the speakers, the people that are hungry, since we're at the table, for leads, for quality referrals. And what they need and what I love sharing with them are the various tools. And sometimes those tools are outside of LinkedIn because I like to be a resource. So it's, yes, getting your profile optimized and upgraded. So at first glance, you show up like the superstar you are. But then I go into my toolbox, just like you go into your kitchen, and I pull out the tools that are going to fit for that individual. So for some, it might be Sales Navigator. You know what? They don't want to have the interaction. They don't want to do the slow dance. They just basically want to go to the, let's just do it, right? And then there's the people that want to create the relationships. And so you're kind of dating, you're having a couple of conversations. And I just meet you where you're at. Doesn't really matter, And then there are other people that say, you know what? Nobody sees my posts. I don't even know how to find the posts of the people that I want to see. So I just meet them where they're at and give them the tools. But, at the very basic part of it is they need to be willing to invest in themselves. Because if you're not willing to invest in yourself, then I'm not willing to invest in you.
Oh, so good. Gold right here at the table, y'all. Rhonda Scher, LinkedIn strategist. I think you should have your own opera.
Oh no, that would be very dangerous. That would be very dangerous. Yes, we don't want me to sing or cook. I believe everybody should stay in their lane. See my husband over there. He's like, no, that's right. Don't sing, don't cook.
Crowd. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. If you're tuning in live, thanks for watching. If you're watching this after the fact, Rhonda, there's so much. First of all, I know there's a lot we could do together in the future, and we'll keep doing that. One thing I'd like you to do before I ask you to give 3 everyday practices for the people who really want to invest in the LinkedIn community, especially having worked with you. Sidebar here, y'all. When I worked with Rhonda, she's like, yes, she ended up doing all the upgrades and doing everything, getting it all ready, but damn, the intake form, that was a lot of work. It was exhaustive, and it was good because just like muscles, you don't grow unless you really get in there and get things going. So I thank you, damn it. I'm really glad we did that because it was work I needed to do or I wanted to do in other ways. And you just brought it all together. Like you've told me, LinkedIn is your second website. Ding. Brilliant. Here's what I'd love for you to do, because I know this is 100% you. There's a lot of people who get a negative reaction to leads and referrals. There's little bunny foo-foo. So how can we de-ick that, Rhonda? So how can we think differently about leads and referrals so it doesn't feel like we're, what'd you say, salesy or sleazy?
Well, when you say think differently about leads and referrals, are you asking in terms of how do we get them, or I'm not
No,
really.
sure. I'll clarify. So a lot of people, like, you're not, like, you embody, oh yeah, a lead is a possible trail. It's the cones bringing in the plane. Like, maybe this is someone I can serve. How is it? Let me ask it slightly different way then. How is it that you love the idea of leads because you know you're going to find out who somebody is, and if they possibly need you, you'll offer, and if they don't, you won't. How do you think about that?
So one of the questions that I ask people, there's two questions. Number one, what's really working for you?
Hmm.
What's working in your business?
Hmm. Right.
Because you need to know what's working. And
Right.
so often what I will hear is, and I'll use this real estate agent that I just started working with. And she said, oh, well, what's working for me is my reputation. I primarily get all of my referrals from doctors and high powered executives. That is what's working. I said,
Okay.
great, that's awesome. What's not working for you?
Hmm.
And when I find out what's not working, that's when I can fill in the blanks.
Hmm.
So think about what's not working. Well, a lot of times what's not working for people is their digital footprint. How are you showing up? So when you talk about leads, okay, think of this. If I said to somebody, oh my gosh, you need to touch a Ginger Johnson, you're looking for somebody to do this one person show, she's amazing. Now I can vouch for it because I was actually there live in person at the table. I want to make that introduction. Well, there is better than a 70% chance that even though I have sung their praises to the hilt, no, I wouldn't sing because that wouldn't be good. I've spoke about them, that they're going to Google you. And guess
Hmm.
what? Your LinkedIn profile is going to show up on the first page of Google.
Hmm.
So even though you have an exceptional website, better than most that I've ever seen, people are 2 times more likely to believe what they see on LinkedIn. And it's chronological. So
Hmm.
they get to look at that, and all of a sudden they'll see, oh, wow, there's her talk. They can see you speak. There's your books. There's your testimonials. There's all of the stuff about you. There's your call to action. So all of a sudden, a lead is something that is very tangible. It's very easy to give, and it's very comfortable for the person that's giving it, because I know when they Google you, they're not just taking my word for it. They are actually getting their own verification.
Hmm.
I mean, think about this. How many times do you watch a movie and not look at how many people, the stars there are? How many products do you buy on Amazon and read the reviews before you make the selection? How many restaurants do you go to before you look at the Yelp reviews or choose a doctor and look at the Google reviews? Well, LinkedIn is no different. So again, the way you can qualify a lead is read the profile. It's going to tell you a lot about that person.
Right. And so that's why a profile that emulates who you are, that can speak to what you do, how you serve, where you've been from, what your story
Yep.
is all the more critical. Mm.
Yeah, it really is. And it should tell people, it should be always written from the standpoint of what's in it for them. Because really, they don't care about you
Right.
until they know that you care.
Right.
So, when you see the word I, you go,
Right.
I don't think so, and you're looking for that trust factor. So
Right.
let's just use the example of maybe it's a real estate agent and you find out that they rent a 1 bedroom in a crummy area of town. Is that really the real estate agent that you're going to want to use? If you're buying an expensive home, probably not. Would you work with a financial advisor that was broke? So again, you want to be able to qualify, and the leads also are, where are they coming from and how qualified are they? Is it an introduction in the way of, you talk about connectivity, or
Right.
is it just, hey, Ginger, call so and so, and then you call them and they're like, I don't even know who she is, and I don't know why you're calling me. That is
Right.
not what you want to be doing.
Right, right. And that can be fallout from the card shove, which sometimes happens in networking. Like, oh, I just got this thing. I don't really know, Carol, but I'm going to give you this because Nicole wants to know. Like, well, wait a minute. They're just going back to that deposit, that investment. I call it's investment versus spending. I call that the Howell principle. You've got to be able to invest for something to grow. So, wow, we could go for hours, and we'll do that another time. I have two more questions for you today, Rhonda. Share the share method. There we go. Okay. So the first one is what are 3 simple shifts somebody can make on their LinkedIn profile that will have a pretty obvious positive impact? 3 simple shifts.
3 simple things that you can really do to get a high return on your investment. Number 1, your banner. That's right, the first thing you see. And if you don't have one, because LinkedIn just gives you blank space, go to Canva, canva.com, and create one.
Right.
And if you don't,
the picture behind
exactly
the picture.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you're really drawing a blank and you're going, oh my God, what should I put there? Get a picture of the city you live in. That's good enough.
Okay. All right. I love it. Okay. Banner number 1, create something or have something that is suitable. Being aware that if it's mobile device or if it's larger screen, that Cameo is going to move around, right?
Yeah, but if you go to Canva, it's actually the template there works for both.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Just check it out.
Sure. Banner number 1. Number 2.
Headshot. Oh my gosh. Okay, think of it like a dating site. Would you put a picture of yourself from 20 years ago? I don't think so.
Well,
because here's the reality. You're going to meet that person on Zoom or in person, and you want it to match. So make sure that that headshot is just you looking out at the camera, smiling. Now, yours is a little bit different, Ginger, because yours is a reflection of your personality and your brand, and it fits. But for most people, what I would recommend is just have a very clean picture. Don't get one that you took with somebody else and cut them out of the picture and you can see that you were at a wedding, right?
How about a selfie? What do you think about selfies?
I wouldn't do a selfie, but I would get your fine husband to take a photo of you because it'll come out clearer. So just a plain wall and take a photo, right? And here's a really cool thing. There is a free website called Photo, Photo, Feeler, Feeler.com. Check it out because it'll give you feedback on your photo. So you don't have to go ask your friends because they want to be nice, right? Okay. They're not going to tell you.
All right. So banner, headshot, number 3.
Headline. Okay. Ooh. So here's the deal with the headline. If you do not put one there, LinkedIn is so generous that they give you one. And you know what they give you? Your job title. So if under your first piece of experience, it says founder, CEO. Guess what? That's all it's going to say under your name.
Okay. And the headline, to be clear, the headline are those first words underneath your banner that also has your picture. So
underneath your name.
Underneath your name. Right. Excuse me.
So underneath your name, you want to put a headline, and that headline should always be benefit driven. Who do you serve, right? So great example. There's a lot of people out here that want to be podcast guests. Do you want to be a podcast guest? Have you guested on podcasts? Guess what? Put podcast guest in your headline. You know why? Because podcasters are looking and searching for podcast guests. And they wouldn't know that you are one if you don't put it there.
Right.
So make sure that you use every piece of real estate that you can in the headline, every character, and make it really specific to your target audience and change it around periodically. So those are the 3 basic ones. Here's the bonus, okay? Because can't leave without the bonus, right? Put your contact info in there. Oh my gosh, if you do not put how we can reach you, sorry, smoke signals and carrier pigeons don't work. You need to be able to let people to know how to find you.
Oh, Ronnie, folks, I'm telling you, she's got so much great, and this is simple. This is simple. Nothing about this is complicated. I highly endorse Rhonda. I have worked with her. That's not why she's on the show. She's on the show because she has so much to share at the table with everybody who's interested in connecting in the offline and the online. Credible, visible, and profitable. Those are 3 great words. And it doesn't matter what your profitability, it's not always money. like the joy of friendship, that's incredibly, there's big profit in that, my friends. So Rhonda, the wrap up question, first of all, I know Larry has been putting your contact information in the chat. We'll put that in the show notes also. Highly recommend, as you are looking at your own LinkedIn page, go look at Rhonda's first. And then I would also look at some of the testimonials that she has, look at their pages, because there's lots of ways to slice and dice this to make this fit you. And of course, I absolutely recommend working with Rhonda. Why? I would never have somebody on my show that I didn't fully endorse and not to hire, but it's oof, the world is so connected. It's like a sticky cobweb, y'all. Get in there, climb in, and it's going to be so much fun. And I immediately saw a positive impact from my big LinkedIn. And Rhonda, I think you know this, you're the third LinkedIn coach I've hired. Like everybody has a different benefit. Everybody has a different lens. And like one of my first ones taught me kind of the emotional intelligence side of it. Like, oh, this is really interesting. Why do people engage and so forth? But Rhonda is one of the best. She's the best in my humble opinion. Yes, it's my
Thanks.
show.
I so appreciate it. You know,
absolutely. Like, listen how generous she is, y'all. Okay. Your dad may have started it, but you have chosen to perpetuate it, Rhonda. So that is a huge thing to your credit. Here's the closing question today for At the Table. I'm coming to your house, I'm setting the table, I'm cooking you and Bob dinner. Who do you want at that table? Who's a guest you would love to have at that table?
Who's a guest I would love to have?
Anybody alive. No, none of this posthumous stuff. Like I'm not quite that powerful, but anybody alive, who would you like to
well,
have?
You know, one of the biggest mentors for me, and I'm a big believer in investing in myself. I studied with somebody by the name of Joel Bauer. And most people don't even know who Joel Bauer is because he's the guy behind the curtain. He's trained people like Brendan Burchard and worked with Tony Robbins and Robert Allen. And oh my God, the list just goes on and on. In fact, I did his profile. And as much as I have been, you know, a client of his and he's been a client of mine, to have him at my table, because he's such a nice guy, you know, he gives so much money to Make-A-Wish, you know, and just really, you talk about generosity. I would love to have, assuming that my husband did the cooking, because I really wouldn't want to do that.
I'll cook so Bob can take a night off.
Oh, cool. Okay, great. Yeah, that would be, he would love that. Oh my God, he would love that. I would love to have Joel Bauer at my table. Okay. I just think that, you know, we all rise up by the people we surround ourselves with.
Yes.
And I know that every time I invest in a program with Joel, and I'm going to another one of his masterclass in November, which I've been to before, it's not one-on-one time, obviously, you know, but it's the people that he attracts. So I would love to have him at the table with you doing the cooking.
Well, all we need to do is set the date, Rhonda.
I love it.
Oh, everybody, this is so great. Rhonda, thank you for being here. Thank you if you're here live as a guest at the table. I'm guessing you took some nuggets away from you, and feel free, the show will be published on our YouTube channel shortly. We're going to stick around after we stop the recording for a few minutes. So if you have any questions for Rhonda, she's happy to answer them. If you need to bounce, we're so glad. At the Table happens every third Thursday. The next one is October 20th. So come and join us then. And until then, Rhonda, thank you so much. I love you. You're amazing. Thanks for being here. Yes, and we'll see you again soon at the table.